Welcome to Intersection Chats. Today we are going to talk about personal brand story and ADHD in business. I am delighted to have here today Maria. She's going to bring her expertise and her insights from a lot of years of experience. So I am Reme Mancera, a personal brand story strategist, and I am here today with Maria. Welcome, Maria.
Thank you so much for having me today. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you.
Nice. So please tell us a bit about who you are and what you do.
Definitely. My name is Maria Medina. I'm the founder of the Coaching and Network. I'm a business and networking coach with an ADHD side to my business. I started in ADHD because I was personally affected by it, and I wanted to see if I could help other entrepreneurs that were struggling with it too.
Mm. So it's a really interesting point of view because you have the expertise, but also the personal experience. So I'm looking forward to have this conversation. So let's dive in. What is in your experience the connection between personal brand story and HDSD in business?
I think it dictates what you're able to focus on. So, with regards to personal brand story, it depends how you grew up with it, right? Because there's a lot of people that grew up with it as a stigma and they think of it as a crutch. It hinders what they're able to do, how productive they're able to be. And so it affects how they're able to connect personally with other people, right? Because they limit what they think that they can do. So it'll affect the story that they can take. However, if you take a different aspect of it and you say, actually, ADHD is my superpower and it makes me really creative, then you can put a spin on how you present your brand to other people, right? So it depends on the story, as in any branding, the story that you tell yourself and the story that you've been fed from a very young age.
Mm. Yeah, I feel like in the sense of when you are sharing your story with others, it's so important also the story that you tell yourself, no matter what. So I really feel that. And from my perspective, I have worked with clients that they have it, and there are like the some elements that I feel are really connected to personal brand story. For example, the idea of how repetition can be challenging sometimes if it's something that you get bored of, and how if you do personal brand story, just having one way of telling that can get repetitive and you can get bored of yourself. I feel that's general, especially if this idea of things new being something that you really enjoy and you really appreciate. If you have that, it's like, oh, again I am sharing the same story in the same way. And the way that I approach personal brand story is that it's not just one story but several. And I have this framework called the 10 story connectors, which is 10 meaningful moments from your journey, and each of them is connected to your offer. Having an approach where you have not just one but several stories can be helpful to feel like to address that idea of repetition. And then also, no matter what, you can share the same stories in different ways, from different angles, from different narrative angles. And I feel that addressing that could be a way to, okay, I know what are my superpowers, what are things that get challenged to me, and then it's like how I can make things easier for me, no matter in personal brand story, in business in general, right? And one of the things that, and I would love to know your thoughts on it, one of the things that, based on the people that I have worked with, there are these multiple interests. I don't know if that's connected to HDHD because of this hyper focus and liking one thing and another. But that in my experience with clients, that has been the case. I don't know if that's something general or not. So I would love to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, definitely. And you get that not just with people with ADHD. You get that with entrepreneurs, and that's why we're entrepreneurs, right? We have these ideas, we have these creations that we want to implement, and often what will happen is it'll spark additional ideas, right? So you're working on something, it's really interesting, you're looking to launch, and then all of a sudden this other grand idea comes in, and that's what's happening, right? The creativity all with all the sparking. And what I find is there are certain individuals that are great at saying, no, let me stick to this idea, let me get it to fruition before I head on these other 10 different tangents. And I like to tell my clients, when it's okay to have those tangents, but remain in the focus for the goal, right? Does this
Mm.
tangent serve my goal? And if it doesn't, write it down, keep it somewhere, right? Because it might be useful in the future, or you might read it in a month's time and you're like, what was I even thinking, right? Because I stuck to this. This
Mm.
is how it worked. So I think you find that not just with ADHDers, but with just entrepreneurs in general. And I like that your branding, to speak to what you're saying before, with the 10 different ways to tell the story, right? The 10 different points, to link your brand to with your experiences. And I actually find that that's very useful for people with ADHD, because a lot of them, what'll happen is they want to relate to you. That's kind of an ADHD trait, right? They want to be liked, and they also want to tell, hey, that happened to me. I want to share the story that relates to what you were sharing. And what I tell my clients often to do is cater the story to who you're speaking to, and that's how you keep it interesting.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's one of the points to be really aware of, like who is the audience, who is the people that you are reaching out to, and you want to, and what is your goal. Then also how you practice how to articulate those stories. And for me, it's really important that they are connected to what you want to sell and what is your offer, what you want to be positioned for. And I love when people with multiple passions, they have these amazing different backgrounds. So it's like really interesting to bring that to what you do now, because no matter what, you have lessons there, and you as a person, you have certain values, you have certain ways of doing things. So you, in your previous experience, I'm sure there are elements that are relevant for your clients now, or maybe you have a natural skill that is something that has shown up in different moments of your life. And especially related to this idea of different interests and different passions, I have seen how before working together, people were like, I'm not sure which one will be relevant because I have done so many different things, and how I choose the one that makes sense for this new thing that I want to position myself. And there, I always like to invite think about, yeah, what is one specific lesson that you got in that moment that is relevant now for the client, for the audience that you are trying to reach out? Because I feel like that make it more specific, but then it gives you the opportunity to share a story that makes your communication memorable and outstanding, because there could be more people offering similar services, similar offers, but that unique combination of different uh, work experience and your values and your personality, that's unique. So using that as an asset for your business is something that I always invite people to do.
Yeah, I mean, it goes with the quote by Bob Berg, people do business with people they know, like, and trust.
Mm.
And, all things being equal. And when it comes to doing business with somebody, if price is the same, they're going to choose the person that they have the best relationship with and the best rapport. Like, there are hundreds of coaches out there, but there's a reason why clients choose me, why clients choose another coach over somebody else. And I think being able to relate to the client, but with the experience, that's what one of the reasons why I became a coach. I was finding a gap in the fact that there were a lot of coaches out there that came from corporate training backgrounds and not from running their own business. And
Mm.
I was running my own business at the time. And I thought, well, if I'm running it and people are asking me for help with their business, I could turn this experience into, hey, I've done it before. I grew it and I sold it. And now I can help you achieve whatever goal, whether that's to grow it, to hand it down, to sell it, to whatever that goal is, but it speaks to what you're saying. What is the goal of the talk that I'm trying to give, of the way that I'm trying to position myself so that I can grab experiences in my story and make it relevant to that goal?
Yeah, I feel like this idea is so key. The building trust in general has been always important, but I feel like now is especially a time where we really need to build that trust, because of, yeah, we are in new scenarios with new elements like AI and other things in the business space that we really need to make as that building the trust one of the key elements if we want our businesses to go grow or be sustainable, profitable, and such, right? So I feel like using storytelling in general is a great way to build that trust because you are creating that genuine connection with people because they can relate even if they haven't gone through the same exact experiences. They can relate with the emotion, they can relate with the what you are sharing, your takeaway, and they can, especially they can have the context of why you do what you do and why it's important to you.
Yeah, when people connect with a story, it's just like knowing your product or your service like the back of your hand, right? If they are able to connect with why you're doing and they see that there's that genuine interest for you to help them. Like let's say with me, as a coach, what is it in it for me? And what I enjoy is I enjoy seeing the light bulb moment. I enjoy seeing people achieve their potential. Do I know everything about every single industry that I work with? No. My clients teach me on a regular basis because they are their experts in their fields. And people forget that. They forget when they're out there making a sale, when they're out there telling their story. People are listening to you because you are an expert in what it is that you're speaking, and confidence sells.
Mm, yeah, 100%. And there is this idea of the authority that you project, but this I feel like this back to connected to your inner authority, how you see yourself as someone knowledgeable with experience, with expertise, and how that is also reflected in the way that you show up. And of course there is practice with that, and you get better, and you with that practice you get more confident. But there are an element of really trusting yourself and knowing yourself, and I feel like that is really connected, especially with people with ADHD, because at least in the experience when working with clients, I've seen how one of the pivotal moments, usually for them, is understanding their brains and having a relief of, okay, now I understand a lot of things that happen, especially. Most of the people that I have contacted and worked with, they are women that they have been diagnosed or understanding that when they were not that young. So they were a bit more into maybe the 30s, 40s, and such. And it's like having the relief of really understanding what's going on and how my brain works, and understanding that, yeah, what looks like a weakness can be a power, and can be something that I can take advantage of. So I would love for you to share a bit about that process of understanding your brain from your perspective and from your clients.
Yeah, and it's funny because there's actually a message sitting in my inbox from somebody that was talking about how, AD, it used to be ADD and they added the H, right, hyperactivity as sort of an a way to say, okay, you have this, and it's more likely in boys, in men,
Mhm,
which is
mhm,
why a lot of girls go underdiagnosed and they go through all of these struggles and they're just meant to, sit still, be quiet, act like a lady, right? They're not supposed to act out and speak out and do all these things. So not only is society suppressing that aspect, right? But they're also saying kind of deal with it. This is how
mm,
it is. Just deal with it and manage. And a lot of people don't know, but resiliency is actually an ADHD trait. And it is being able to, despite how your brain works, figure out how to make it work for you. And that's why a lot of women go underdiagnosed, because they are just expected to anyway in society. So it's not something that they actively go and reach out to. And funnily enough, it gets exacerbated by menopause. And that is
Mm,
why in the 30s and 40s, they go through and they're like, oh, it's just menopause. It's like, no, it's something else, right? It's all these things that I was already experiencing now heightened up, and it's even worse than it used to be before. So the advantage of understanding your brain and saying this isn't a crutch, this is just how my brain works, right? It's just like how some people are better at math than they are at drawing. And it's
yeah.
saying, how do I work with my brain? But I'm going to say it is a disadvantage because they didn't know it early enough, but it's also an advantage because they have been working through all of this for all their lives, and now they get like that relief, and it's sort of like that pressure valve, and it's just like letting the air out, and you're like, oh, I understand why I am how I am now, but I've built all of this resilience, and I've built all of this being able like to cope, and
Mm,
now I can deal so much better with it. So it's
mm,
unfortunate that girls don't get as easily diagnosed as boys because of that hyperactive portion, but I think that it also allows for the discussion to be had as with other diagnoses, and figuring out how can we bring this to the table earlier so that we understand that ADHD looks different in little boys than it does in little girls. And let's not say it's a hindrance. It's just your brain works different.
yeah. Yeah. And I feel like, yeah, I don't know. I get so surprised about how, in general, they do all these medical studies based on men and not having women in the picture. And I feel like maybe with this it was kind of similar, and just like analyzing or studying the behavior of boys, and having that as the norm, or the yeah, the way to understand that process. um I would love to know for you how that specific self-awareness and relief, how that interact with the business, in the sense of how you run your business.
Yeah, I always like sharing the story of one of my clients, and she's in the marketing field. She's a creative. And when she first came to me, she came with this expectation. She had come from corporate. And so her corporate work was 9 to 5. And that's how she was expected to function. And she functioned very well in corporate. But then the moment she transitioned into entrepreneurship, she was sticking to that 9 to 5. And she was struggling at the end of the day because she wanted to keep going. But because she started so early, she couldn't. She was so tired. And
Mm,
then she was working crazy long hours. With her type of ADHD, what we were able to figure out is her creativity burst. Like some people have creativity bursts in the morning, some mid-afternoon, some late in the evening. We found her best creative moments were 3 to 7 in the afternoon. And we said, okay, well, can we start at 11? Do we have to start at 9? What is this societal pressure that we have to start 9 to 5, right? There's none. And especially with entrepreneurship, it allows you that flexibility to, but it all comes from mindfulness and awareness. So you need to understand, how do I function? When do I work best? What's distracting me? What's stopping me? And having that conversation with yourself, having that mindfulness, maybe having a coach or somebody else that you talk to, a mentor, that you say, this is how I see myself working. And then how can I change my business so that it works for me and I'm not just working for my business?
mm, 100%. I think, and this based on my own experience as well, when I started my business, yeah, I functioned just as I was working for others, for other companies. And then it was like, okay, I am the one doing taking the decision here. I can do things in a different way that makes sense for me, even if doesn't make sense for anyone else. That's okay. Makes sense for me. And it was a lot of unlearning for me. And it's like trying to and I still now I find myself like, it's like, why I want to do this in this way? I don't have to. I can do it. I am the one. I can experiment and I can try things in a different way that makes sense for me. But yeah, there is a lot of this unlearning. At least it it has been for me. This unlearning of what is supposed to be and how business is supposed to be, how you are supposed to run your business or do certain things.
There's that problem with regards to comparison and comparing yourself to others, but there's
Mhm.
also the societal norms, the status quo of what hours you're supposed to work. And as an entrepreneur, we forget that we are the boss. We are setting these
Yeah.
rules. And it even comes to meeting deadlines, like you're the one setting the deadline for when your website has to launch. Yes, you should definitely set deadlines, but you also understand that they're flexible. It's not black and white. Have things changed from the moment that you set that deadline, and now let's say 2, 3 months later, what has happened that maybe you need to extend that deadline, or maybe you could launch sooner. So again, that self-awareness is key in understanding that you are the one setting the rules, right? They're not set in stone. It's not black and white. It's, why did I set this rule 3 months ago? Does it still apply today? And that's what a lot of people struggle with, changing their mind, changing their decision, changing their target based on new information because they don't want to admit that they were wrong 3 months ago.
Mm. Mm. And maybe they were not wrong, they were just in a different point.
Correct. And I always ask my clients, and it applies a lot in networking. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people, they'll join a group and they're very excited, and they go to the meetings and they're getting to know the people, and then 6 months, 9 months down the line, they haven't gotten business from the group, and they think, oh, I'll just, I'll give it another year. I'll give it, I've tried everything, but maybe I just need to be here for longer. And it's asking yourself, with the information that I have now, 9 months from joining the group, would I have joined 9 months ago? If the answer is no, then stop. You've already wasted your money. Stop wasting your time. And if the answer is yes, actually, I see a different value. It's not monetary, but it might be connections, it might be knowledge, it might be personal growth.
Yeah.
Then you can stay with your decision, but you can change the goal. You don't have to have the same goal from when you start made the decision to later down the line.
Yeah, and it's a matter of, okay, reevaluate and then decide based on that. Because yes, it's like your goal can evolve, your business has maybe evolved as well, and you as a person, you are maybe in a different season, and then you want to reevaluate things. So yeah, I think I see that. Yeah, in networking I understand, because also because of the expectations in general that people go to that, especially if they haven't been like really experienced into that. It's like, what are the expectations that you have from that? Yeah, something that I feel like, especially around coaching, also in the work that I do, because it's really uh, private, and because of the topic, I feel like one of the things that is really important is to have a space where the person feels comfortable and safe to share, so they can be open and share about their struggle or their concerns or their thoughts. And the same for personal brand storytelling. We are going through their journeys, they are talking about big things that were happen in their life, and maybe they are not going to share that publicly, but we go through some of that together to understand the context of what they do, right? So I would love to know your thoughts around that, around how, for you see like this idea of, okay, how I make things easier for someone to trust the process and to be open to share and to be open to be honest to me but also to themselves in these processes when you work with them.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that I do there with regards to saying this is a judgment-free zone and these conversations are completely confidential. The first one that a lot of people overlook is a contract. It's
Hmm.
as simple as having it written in black and white. These conversations are strictly confidential unless you explicitly tell me that you would like me to share this with somebody else. That reassurance and the signing and countersigning between clients and coach as well as provider is very, very important so that they have something that they're like, no, we committed to this, we signed to this. I don't know if you know this about coaches, but you can just become a coach. You don't have to have any kind of certification. You can
Uh-huh.
just
Okay.
tomorrow wake up, say, I'm a coach, and there's really no standardized requirement. Um, there are certifications out there, and that is one of the first things that I did before I launched my coaching practice. I went through the International Coaching Federation because I wanted to abide by their codes and their ethics, and one of those is confidentiality. So having sort of that seal of approval from the ICF definitely also helps. But when I'm having an actual conversation, let's say before they sign the contract, before they've looked at my credentials, it's very important for me to communicate with them. And I use the example of therapy. And I say, if you go to your therapist and you lie, they're not going to be able to help you.
Yeah.
The same applies here. I need the absolute truth because we need a starting point. This isn't you're doing it right, you're doing it wrong. This is what you should be doing. This is where are you right now so that we can shift, we can make the right decisions going forward, we can adjust what you're currently doing, we can analyze if it's where you should be functioning and then go from there. And the more honest that you are with a coach, with a provider, the more likely they're able to help you. It's like going to get a mortgage and lying about your income. You're
Mm.
not going to get the mortgage in the end, right? Because they will
Mhm.
check that and they will. So when you're speaking with somebody that is providing a service for you that relies on the information you give them, the more accurate information you're able to give them, the more likely they are to help you. And if they can't, the more likely they'll be able to say, hey, you shared all of this. It's not a good fit. Let's not waste both of our times and your money. This is this is the best way forward for you, or this is not. And the more honest that you are with your providers, the better they're able to service you as a client.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, I feel like that's really important. And when you were saying that, something else that crossed my mind is how sometimes it's not that the person doesn't want to be honest, it's that they don't really know, and it's like being open to explore that with that person that is trying to help you. I feel like that is really key. And having, yeah, that's again going to their relationships and building trust in one another. And this idea of, for example, for me, I always say that to my clients is like, I feel so grateful because they are generous to share their stories with me, and I am a really private person, so I really appreciate when others are sharing that with me, because i I know that it's like sometimes this stuff that is hard to share, and it's connected to a lot of emotions, and even when it's something that has passed in the past and you are over it, there is memories that are like affecting you in a way or another. So I feel like doing that process with them is beautiful, because they get to understand even better why they do what they do, and having, even for when they share with others but also by themselves. But it's something that I really appreciate, because as you say, like being honest, and I feel that point of when you are able to make sense in a way of your story, and it's like, oh, now I understand that, yeah, there is this common thread, that I was doing this something totally different. I have a I work a lot with people that they are making some pivot in their business, so they are moving from one niche to another and such, and they have this feeling like, how I'm going to introduce myself now, how I'm going to bring these past stories because they are going to confuse people, and I don't want to do that. So going through this process and making sense of, okay, now I know how these pieces work together and how I can explain in a way that makes sense for the others. But yeah, going back to this idea of the creating a space where you can share and you can trust the other person, that you are, yeah, in a space, no judgment, and there are not such things as stupid questions, and here to support you. So it's like, Lex, even if you don't know the honest answer and you are open to explore that together, I feel like that's really key to have that space for holding that coaching or that process that is really that deep.
Yeah, I find that when somebody says, I don't know, it's because they haven't been asked that question before. They
Mm,
haven't thought about it and they don't have enough information to answer the question. So I always like to reframe it with, I don't know right now.
mm,
Let me think about it. Let's talk about it more. Can you ask me in a different way?
mm,
And it's having that openness for them to admit, you know what, I actually don't know the answer to that right now. I haven't thought about it that way. You framed it in a different way than what I was originally thinking. So I don't know how to answer that question. Like, you're correct. It's them being open to me saying, okay, let me ask a different way. Let me ask you more
mm,
questions to get it out of you, to get more the information that you need to know.
mm. Yeah. And I find that in the experience that I have had working with some neurodivergent clients, that they have done a lot of masking because they felt different. They felt that they need to kind of pretend. And that's something that, again, back to this idea of unlearning, sometimes they need to unlearn that, and it's like, it's okay that I am honest here and I'm open about how I am, who I am. I've seen that because I work with people pivoting. I see that for people with a lot of interest and different passions, they feel kind of not embarrassed but kind of shy to share that sometimes, because people are telling them you need to choose a niche and you need to focus in one specific, one only thing and all that. So they kind of are like a bit of hesitant of, okay, how will be the reaction from this coach or from this provider when I say this, or when I am open about, yeah, I have all these passions and interests, which is lovely and make you a multifaceted person, which I think is beautiful. But yeah, I know that for some people that come from that past journey of people maybe telling things and judging them. So yeah, how has been that with your clients and your in your experience?
Yeah, I think I find that during the initial like first consultation session, I have to be very clear with regards to the honesty because that's part of the masking, right? The masking is kind of for survival to be able to fit in. And what is very important, and as I'm sure you would understand from storytelling, is that you want to stand out, you want to be memorable. You want to have people remember you because of how different you are from the other providers and not just this robotic. This is exactly what I offer, and it's exactly the same as the last five other people that you offered it to. I find that getting that out of them is much easier from when you understand how their brain works. And
Mm,
once you get them talking about that thing that they love, the mask drops. They cannot help it. All you have to do is pay very close attention to their body language, the
mm,
language that they're using, how they're speaking. Because a lot of the time they will raise their voice, they will speak louder, right? Their ADHD sort of comes out. And I find that it's actually harder to get that mask to slip for the people that are in professional services. Think about your accountant, your attorney, your doctor,
mm,
because there's a level of professionalism that, as much as the trust is there, as much as all of that is there, there's certain standards that they have to abide by. And uh, there's that fear. If I let go here, I might end up letting go in other places that I'm not supposed to. So it's helping them understand how their story, their background, their experiences will be a benefit to how they serve their clients because they'll be able to relate better and they're more likely to come back.
Mm. Yeah, one of the things that I always like to highlight is how you can use your personal brand story to, yeah, for the trust, but it's providing context of who you are and what has been your journey, and it's also helping build that connection. And the third part is providing contrast, is showing how you are memorable, how you are someone unique. And I liked for especially for people that they have this kind of more not so creative or more rigid kind of structure in their business, in their work that they do. I always like to ask them in general, especially to them, is like, okay, what is an approach that you do different? Because two people following the same method, they will highlight something will be a bit more special for them or interesting, or somehow they go and do more time in that because they feel it's more important. No matter what, even if you are following the same method, there's something that you feel more connected to, and it's a unique angle, a unique approach. So I always like people, it's like, okay, start there, think about what is important to you, what is different from how you do things, and then try to see if that approach has been the case in other places in your life, in other environments. Maybe even if you have some hobbies in a past work experience with your family or friends. Can you see that pattern, or can you see that skill there also applying? Because that can be a moment that you can highlight to use as a bridge to talk about that thing that is important in the work that you do now. And it's something unique, and it's something that is going to help you to stand out, to be memorable, and for people to connect to, that's why that person do this in this way. And I really appreciate that. So I want to learn more about how and why they do that. So it's a way to build that connection, genuine connection between, okay, why this person do this in this play in this way, or why they focus specifically in helping this group of people, how is that connected to them as a human being.
Yeah, and I find that a lot of people miss the opportunity to ask their loyal clients, why did
Hmm.
you choose to do work with me? Why did you choose me over other people that you were talking about with the same service? And the moment that you do that and you start asking and you ask multiple and you start seeing the same reason pop up in different ways,
Yes.
it starts to build that self-awareness so that next time you're having that conversation, if you have that clear brand story and that clear outline of this is why people choose to do work with me and this is why I'm different from others, the moment you get an objection or somebody says something that fits exactly what you're trying to sell, you know exactly what to say.
Mm. I now get really curious, and I need to ask you, what is for yourself? Like, what are people highlighting? These things that are popping up every time that you have a testimonial or a review from a client.
Yeah, yeah, it's usually relatability,
Mm-hmm.
experience, and easy to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that when it comes to coaching, there's so many ways that you can coach somebody, but they get the opportunity with me to ask things like, and I've had clients that come to a session and they said, so I was going through this, but then I just asked myself, what would Maria do? And I fixed it, and this is what I did. And they start getting that little voice in their head because they're relating to what I'm sharing, right? They ask, have you experienced this? Do you know anybody that's done this before? And if I'm easy to talk to, I found that even networking, I'll be out networking and somebody will pull me aside. I had this happen a couple weeks ago and they said, can I ask you this question about this thing in my business? And I'm like, I just met you, but sure. And I find that happens when I'm doing the consultation and I say, no, I'm going to ask you some questions. Obviously, you don't know me, but the more you tell me, the more likely, and it comes from being genuine, the more likely I'm going to see if I can even help you. Because,
Mm,
like I said before, I don't want to take you on if it's not a good fit because it's not going to be a good fit for either of us. I'm going to be struggling to help you. It's going to be a challenge for me, and
yeah.
then you're not going to achieve what you want to achieve. So that's what keeps popping up for me, the ease to be able to talk to me, as well as them knowing my past experience and knowing Maria's been through this before, so I can bring this up with her.
Mm, yeah, that's great. Nice. Okay, so we are going to start wrapping up. So, I always like to ask a way to summarize that connection between the topics that we talk. So today, how would you summarize with a couple of words? Like the connection between personal brand story and ADHD in business.
I would say use your uniqueness to brand yourself.
Love that. Yeah. For me, I will choose the idea of self-awareness because I feel like in both personal brand story and the in business is like really being aware of yourself, knowing yourself. Um, as we said, like understanding ourselves is key for both being able to share your story, but also running your business in a way that makes sense for you and the way that you function in life, right? So yeah, thank you so much for this conversation. I feel like we can go on, but so let's keep it here. But it's like has been really interesting to learn about your approach and learn about your experience and having your insights. How people can learn more about you and connect with you if they want to keep the conversation going.
Definitely. They should go to the website, thecoachingnetwork.com. And if they are ADHD prone, I do have some workshops coming up in June, which are productivity for ADHD brains. And if they want to connect social, I'm on LinkedIn and on Instagram, Maria Medina Coach.
Okay, nice. Also, the links will be around. And if people want to learn more about my approach to personal brand story and the 10 story connectors, they can go to my website. And there are different resources that ideas and questions that they can ask to think about how I can use this past story to highlight what I do now. So, thank you so much, Maria. This has been wonderful.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
See you.